Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Kleidman, editor-in-chief of Yahoo News, and welcome to this bonus episode of Yahoo News' Conspiracyland, a new podcast series on the murder of Seth Rich brought to you by Skullduggery. I'm here with my colleague and Skullduggery co-host Mike Isikoff, Yahoo News' chief investigative correspondent, and the host of Conspiracyland, and Bianna Golodriga, the veteran news broadcaster who's reported for ABC News, CBC News, is currently a CNN contributor, and is our former colleague at Yahoo. In these special episodes, we will tell the story behind the story of Conspiracyland, explore the larger themes that this tangled and tragic case raises, and hear from Mike what it was like to report on the Seth Rich murder as he plumbed the depths of the dark netherworld of American political conspiracies. Each bonus podcast will be available with the episode it corresponds to. Today we're discussing Episode 3, Fake News Theater. An amazing cast of characters in Episode 3. Tell us about Jack Burkman. Let's start there.
Jack Burkman is this Washington lobbyist. He's been around for years, sort of known as something of a gadfly who loves publicity and, has a tendency to make absurd and outrageous claims that are going to get him on TV. A few years ago, he was pushing legislation to ban gay athletes from the NFL. So no gays can play professional football. He described it as a matter of common decency. Obviously, nobody was going to endorse such a bill, but it got Burkman FaceTime on TV, and he craves FaceTime on TV. So he, right after Seth Rich's murder, saw this as a vehicle to inject himself in a big way. He reaches out to the Rich family, offers a $105,000 reward for information about the murder of Seth Rich. That was 4 times more than what the D.C. police was offering. So the Rich family agreed, and they agreed to have a press conference with him, and this is in November of 2016. From there, he basically tries to take over the case. He launches his own investigation into it. He hires an investigator, and then he proceeds to do a filmed reenactment of the Seth Rich murder, and that's something that really horrifies the family. A staged reenactment of their son's death, that was not what they had in mind.
It's important to remind listeners, they did not authorize this.
They did not authorize it. They first learned that this is what Jack Burkman planned to do at the joint press conference they're having with them, in the neighborhood.
And he makes up scenes out of
Well, the reenactment is just absurd. I mean, it's just completely absurd. He has a scene where Seth Rich is calling Julian Assange, offering these emails, totally made up. He has a scene where Seth Rich goes to see Natalia Veselnitskaya.
Remember her name?
Remember that name? The Russian lawyer who was at the Trump Tower meeting to offer the dirt on Hillary Clinton to Don Jr. So, suddenly there's Seth Rich meeting with Natalia Veselnitskaya.
Who does not speak English.
Who does not speak any English, doesn't have an office in Washington, but they're in the Jack Burkman produced reenactment. Knock, 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 come in. I'm Seth Rich from the DNC. Oh, we know who you are, says Natalia Veselnitskaya to Seth Rich. It's completely made up fantasy. And yet this is what Burkman is doing. He says to help the family find the murderers of their son. But
is he a conspiracy theorist?
Oh, yeah. Big, as he says in the podcast,
in the deep state.
I'm a big believer in the deep state.
And, I had to Google him because obviously the name sounded familiar, but I couldn't put a face to it. And when you do, he's a very recognizable figure.
Oh, yeah.
People see him on TV all the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to get so much airtime, given the uncorroborated and made-up stories that he's spewing, that'll bring us to another conversation later on, the role of media and so-called news in all of this.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, if they take the time to Google him, will say, oh, I know him. I recognize him.
No. I think I've been on TV shows myself with him years ago. He would pop
Which gives him that credibility that the Rich family would then agree to go along with him on.
Exactly. It's a really important point, Bianna, because wittingly or not, we are giving these people platforms by putting them on the air.
Right. And there's, the more outrageous you are, the more you can get media attention. It's pretty sad. But, look, there's a sort of delicious divine justice that ends the episode where he's, yearning for other stuff, other evidence of corruption, and then gets this anonymous informant who offers him the internal FBI emails showing corruption at the FBI and offering to give it to him in a garage. He goes to the garage. This is right out of
movie before.
Yeah. In fact, you have. Yes, many times. Some of us have seen that movie, All the President's Men. And of course, after a number of these visits to the garage, he ends up getting shot in the ass by his informant, who turns out to be the guy he hired to investigate the Seth Rich case.
Hoisted on his own petard.
Yes.
But there's a darker side to this as well, which I think a lot of people will remember the name Pizzagate.
Yes.
Comet Pizza.
Oh, yeah. This is, people forget, this was all at the same time. Seth Rich and Pizzagate are all coming together at the same time. And, of course, Pizzagate, the claim that there was a secret dungeon in this popular D.C. pizza parlor.
Not far from our homes in D.C.
Not far from our homes where, we've both been, I'm sure, many times. And this was spawned by some of the Podesta emails, which supposedly had coded language about sex trafficking in the basement of Comet Pizza, and it inspires, one gullible guy from North Carolina to drive up from, with an AK-47 and barge into the restaurant to save those trafficked children in the basement, when in fact there was no basement. And we use Jack Burkman, another one of these internet guys, a guy who was active in a group called Citizens for Trump, and then somehow managed to get a White House press pass, who does a live stream about Pizzagate, and he goes in to investigate on his own. He gets kicked out, and what does he say when he gets kicked out? Well, they're going to try. They can't Seth Rich me. Seth Rich has become shorthand for a political murder in the world of these conspiracists.
And you confront these people, in particular Jack Burkman, with facts.
Yes.
Jack says that according to his source, that Seth Rich was killed at a certain time at a different location.
Yeah, he says he was brought to George Washington Hospital. We have the death certificate. No, it was wrong. Burkman was contending there was all sorts of secrecy going on, and people at GW Hospital were, concealing evidence of the murder, confront him about Natalia Veselnitskaya, the scene, confront him about all these scenes. And what does he end up saying? What's his final defense? In the podcast, in some ways, it's pretty revealing. He said, well, it's entertainment. Michael,
50-50, right? 50.
Oh, that's his motivation.
Right.
What was his motivation? Is for, part of it was my own animal desires to improve my image, right? And then the other half was to do good. But that's entertainment, which he says as his ultimate defense for this nonsense film that he made about the reenactment is, I think pretty telling.
Very troubling.
You introduced a term that I was not familiar with, but it says a lot about the role of social media in spreading these conspiracy theories. It's the super
exactly.
spreader.
Yeah, actually, Peter Singer, who's interviewed in the podcast, he's a fellow at the New America Foundation. He's written a book about how news spreads on the internet. It's called Like War. But he says, the key, he said he analogizes it to public health. We all have Twitter accounts. We all have Facebook accounts. We all tweet. But there are some people who are bigger and more important than others in the world of social media, and they're the super spreaders, the people with the large followings who, when they tweet something, go out to this vast audience for retweets and likes and all the other ways that social media spreads. And Posobiec did this ridiculous Pizzagate live stream, which goes on YouTube and gets 600,000 views on YouTube. So that, it just shows he is a super spreader. He is a guy who took these conspiracy theories and amplified them in a huge way.
One of the words I keep thinking about as I listen to your podcast is impunity. It seems to me that the people who are responsible for spreading these lies and doing the harm that they do so with impunity.
Absolutely.
There doesn't seem to be much accountability.
No consequences, right?
There are no consequences. Social media is like the Wild West. I mean, there's no accountability. There's no enforcement of norms. You're starting to see Facebook and YouTube, try to take
really
stuff down
up, right?
under pressure from Congress. But, there is so much garbage that just circulates out there all the time, and it's defaming people's reputations. It's impugning people's motives. It's casting doubt on all of our institutions, and it's part of this sort of very invidious collapse of democratic norms that we've seen in recent years.
And remind us that law enforcement and the role of law enforcement throughout all of this is minimal because they can't comment on an ongoing investigation.
Right. So, one of the things that fuels the conspiracy theories is Burkman, self-appointed investigator, goes to the police and says, show me the ballistics reports, give me all your evidence. And D.C. police say, we're not going to give you our evidence. This is, we don't want this publicized because when we catch the person who did it or the person we think might have done it, we don't want them to have read about what the evidence is. It could taint their testimony. This is standard law enforcement techniques. I mean, the FBI, the Justice Department, police departments don't talk about sensitive evidence in ongoing investigations unless it has an investigative purpose. And for somebody like Burkman to demand that he have access to the evidence was, ridiculous on its face. But then when it's denied, they're
hiding something.
They're covering something up.
Well, as we move forward to some of these next bonus episodes, we'll be talking about how this is not just the domain of cranksters and hucksters, but actually something that the mainstream media and one network in particular was very involved in. So look forward to talking to you in the next bonus episode.
Great.
Thanks.
What is the true source of the Seth Rich conspiracy theory, and who should be held accountable? Join us as we get to the bottom of it at news.yahoo.com/conspiracyland and subscribe to Conspiracyland on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts.